Welcome to the Fairy Tale God Divine Intervention Show. When God writes the story, God will always get the glory. I'm Shirley Inkton, your host and storyteller for the Most High. Thank you for looking at this video. We are continuing in this assignment in which God gave me, which will be completed on Resurrection Day. This is part 2 of the post that I made or video earlier that was entitled God Looks at the Heart. Now, I want to make sure that even if you didn't see the last video, that I make it perfectly clear that this is my assignment. On March the 15th, 2020, God divinely came to visit with me. A divine visitation. It's something you will never forget. And if you've had one, you know what I'm talking about. God said to me that my life had been similar to a fairy tale and actually posed the question, like, have you noticed? I could feel that. And then God said, my people perceive me as a fairy tale, or my people liken me to a fairy tale. And then God said, through your life, I will show them what a fairy tale God can do. I had no idea what God was getting ready to do, but I did know God was getting ready to do something. And he was. And we'll talk more about that within the next 3 or 4 days, 5 leading up to Resurrection Day. But on this particular assignment, I want to finish talking about the testimony of God looking at the heart. I am one that God has been so very, very embarrassingly good to. I come flexing God because ain't nobody like him. I love God, and there is nothing that I would not do for God, because 55 years come September the 7th, 2025, we'll be celebrating our time together. My walk with Christ, it's been phenomenal. And so God chose this season to reveal those things to the world. Now, looking at the heart, someone would say, as with David, why would God choose a woman? Why would God choose an African American woman? Why would God choose a commoner to share his word with his people? Those same questions were posed back in the day of David. Man would not have chosen David to be the next king, but God looks at the heart. We look at the story of Esther. In her beginnings, humble, she was a commoner, but God chose Esther to save her people. When you look at Mary, the mother of Jesus, she was a commoner, but God looked at her heart. God created her for such a time as that. God looks at our hearts, the choices that we make, the lives that we live. And that's how God chooses. And God chooses whom God chooses. Now, I will share with you this day. This is Palm Sunday, 2025. And God revealed to me as I talk to God, because I am constantly in communication with God, to get through this season that we're going through right now. If God wasn't in my life, I don't think I could do it. But I said, God, Why me? I'm just a commoner. And God said to me, because of the life that God had willed me to live, the steps in which God ordered me to take, and to be in the position that I'm in now, God said, I am the epitome of the voice and the heart of hope. Hope brought me from my childhood to college, which I was not supposed to go. When I graduated from high school, I had made no preparations to go to college. I was going to get a job at the local garment factory and live happily ever after in Eudora, Arkansas. But God sent one of his messengers by the name of Carol Willis. Carol was the son of Reverend C.D. Willis, who was the pastor of Bethel, Eudora, when I gave my life to Christ. They lived in a town not very far away from Eudora, which was Crossett, and they were always instrumental in making sure all the children who were attending Bethel had transportation to go to our leadership congresses. That's the Christian Education Leadership Congress. And so this particular year, I graduated from high school, and Carol picked me up, and he was congratulating me on graduating from high school. And then he said, he posed the question, so where are you going? What school are you going to? And I flexed, and I said, oh, I'm not going to college. I'm going to get a job at the factory. And that was the wrong thing to say, but it was the right thing to say, because that's what God needed me to say in order for Carol to know what his assignment was. From Eudora to Langston, Oklahoma, which is where the Leadership Congress was being held, and then from Langston, Oklahoma, back to Eudora. Carol talked to me about how important it was to go to college. And before he let me out of his car, when we got back to my home, he made me promise that I would contact my school counselor, my high school counselor, the very next Monday. This was a Saturday when I got back. So I went to church that Sunday, and that Monday I contacted Mr. William Stanton, who was my high school counselor at that time. And because I was obedient to what God was doing in my life, I knew I had not taken any of the tests that were needed to get into college. And so Carol said to me, we're about 3 weeks in before college begins. So you won't be able to get in this semester, but you'll be able to start in the spring. So when I called Mr. Stanton, he made some phone calls. And before I knew it, within a week's time, I had gotten admitted into Philander Smith College at that time, it's university now, as a provisional student. And I would have to take the test and everything and keep my grades up to show that I was worthy to be a college student. But I'm telling you, if it had not been for God ordering my steps and me being obedient, then I would not be here today. God chooses us because he knows our relationship with him. He knows our love for him. And so from that point on, it was like my life just changed. So many wonderful things happened to me in college, and so many more miraculous things are still happening to me. And I just thank God for each one. And I'm going to share them with you, but my 10 minutes is coming to a close. So I'm going to say thank you for tuning in to the Fairy Tale God Divine Intervention Show. God is awesome. And he said he's going to show us just how awesome he is. Until the next EP, God bless you. And remember, check out my website that God created through these little fingers that had no technology experience or skills, and that is DITRM.rocks. Check it out. Read. There are probably about 40 um, blogs that God had me to write and place. I had no idea what I was doing when God gave me that assignment. But check it out and see you next time.